Hi, this is Dr. Jenny Mitchell, and welcome to the exploration of Draft 2 requirements. We need to discuss some general requirements for Draft 2 of your thesis, especially if you have a business plan. A thesis is more than a paper. Always refer to it as your thesis. At this stage, there are some general requirements to cover. First, review the rubric and the learning outcomes for the MLD program. Make sure you use APA correctly. This includes more than citation. It includes correctly captioning infographics, tables, and figures. And as you create data visualizations, consider how some of these might be used in your thesis presentation. You may want to review previous coursework, especially if you've had a thesis action project in mind, even at the beginning of your MLD program. At Draft 2, you must have financials completed. You also need an interactive table of contents. At Draft 2, you should have a minimum of 40 sources that are relevant, current, and support the problem and the ultimate action. So let's take a few minutes to review the financials. Let's start first with what requirements for a startup of either a new NFP or a new business. As you can see, even the names of the financials are different. An NFP startup business plan would include the following components. Notice that some support can be found at the National Council of Nonprofits, and feel free to use resources from the Wabash Foundation Program Budget Builder. In fact, consider all the resources at the Wallace Foundation. At the Wallace Foundation, you will find 6 categories of information: overview, planning, monitoring, operations, governance, and resources for nonprofits of financial management. One of the things I like is the featured resource that they have in each category. You don't need to become an expert, but you do need certain components to ensure that the NFP financials are what is expected. 2 years of financials for a startup, or an appropriate budget for a new service or project tied to how it's funded and tied to the mission. Always use appropriate tools for analysis and make sure you include appropriate visualization. Now let's look at OL startups. What would this component look like? For one, you would expect an executive summary and other components of a business plan, which include 3 years financial statements for a new business. Lots of help is available at the Small Business Administration. The SBA includes some business plan tools, including the main components of either a traditional business plan or a lean startup business plan. Besides the components, you can actually download Word documents of sample business plans with the appropriate headings. Sometimes students have a research component and a second section for the business plan in their thesis. To measure the success of an OL business plan, you need 3 years of financial statements with appropriate financial analysis, like ratios. Use the tools learned during the program, SWOT, Porter's 5 Forces, and others. Make sure the financials tie to the mission and have stakeholder support. And always make sure you have an appropriate visualization to include in your thesis presentation. Remember, presenting financial statements can be difficult if you have too much text on the slide, so determine ways to summarize data for presentation. There are more resources in the Getting Started section, and don't hesitate to ask for help. Thanks for listening.